somewhere beneath the ocean, there is a story so old that even the men who first told it called it ancient. A city of impossible beauty, ringed by water, crowned with gold. And one night, without warning, gone. Tonight we go looking for it together. Welcome to WonderDriftStories. If these stories help you sleep, a like and a subscribe means everything to this small channel. Now, let us begin. Everything we know about Atlantis comes from a single man, a Greek philosopher named Plato. Writing around 360 BC, Plato recorded the story in two works, Timaeus and Critias. He did not claim to have invented it. He said it had been passed down through generations from Egyptian priests to an Athenian statesman named Solon, and from Solon, eventually, to him. The priests told Solon that the events had occurred 9,000 years before his own time. 9,000 years. That would place Atlantis at roughly 9,600 BC, long before the pyramids, long before any civilization we have ever found. Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, as an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, larger than two continents, sitting in the ocean that still carries its name, the Atlantic. And from it, travelers of that time could cross to other islands, and from those islands to a continent on the other side. A continent on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Was Plato describing America 12,000 years ago? No one knows. That is the first mystery, and it is only the beginning. At the heart of every great civilization, there is a founding story. For Atlantis, it begins with a god. Poseidon fell in love with a mortal girl named Cleito, daughter of Avenor and Leucippe. Cleito lived on a hill near the center of the island, and Poseidon, in his love for her, did something extraordinary. He broke the ground and enclosed the hill where she dwelt, making alternate zones of sea and land, 2 of land and 3 of water, turning them as if with a lathe out of the center of the island, equidistant every way. Picture that. Concentric rings, alternating land and sea and land and sea again. 3 rings of water surrounding 2 rings of earth, all perfectly circular, all perfectly centered on the hill where Cleito lived. He brought two streams of water under the earth, which he caused to ascend as springs, one of warm water and the other of cold. And from Cleito, Poseidon had 10 sons, 5 pairs of twins. The eldest was named Atlas, and it was Atlas who gave his name to the island, to the ocean, and to the mountains that border the sea where Atlantis once stood. 10 kings, 10 brothers, each ruling a portion of an empire that stretched across much of the known world. The Atlanteans were, at first, a just and spiritual people. They were wise, they were generous, and for a very long time, they were at peace. Let me describe the city for you. Close your eyes a little more and let it form. It was built around a central island, surrounded by concentric rings of water and land. The rings were connected by bridges, and a great canal extended from the central island all the way to the sea, allowing ships to pass through the rings and anchor at the very heart of the city. The walls were constructed of red, white, and black rock quarried from the moats themselves, and were covered in brass, tin, and orichalcum. Orichalcum, a metal that gleamed like fire, more precious than anything except gold. The innermost island housed Poseidon's temple, a massive structure overlaid with silver and gold-capped ivory. The temple was dedicated to Poseidon and Cleito, surrounded by a golden enclosure, richly decorated with precious metals, and at its center, a colossal statue of Poseidon driving 6 winged horses, so tall it nearly touched the ceiling above. 6 winged horses. Around it, 100 sea nymphs rode dolphins of gold. Outside the temple walls, hot springs and cold springs, public baths, gardens, a racetrack circling the outermost ring of land, docks filled with warships, a plain stretching 3,000 by 2,000 stadia, irrigated by a vast network of canals, supporting abundant agriculture, fruits, timber, domesticated animals, including elephants, on an island in the Atlantic Ocean. Plato mentions this detail so casually, as if it requires no explanation. The city was not a dream. It was an engineering project. It was a world. But power has a way of corrupting even the children of gods. Over generations, their divine nature became diluted, and they succumbed to greed and imperial ambition. The 10 kings began to quarrel. They looked outward. Their great fleet set sail, a mighty host starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia. They took North Africa. They took parts of Europe. They pushed east toward Egypt. They pushed further still toward Greece, and there they stopped. A small city, Athens. Atlantis had conquered much of the known world, only to be turned back by the earliest Athenians. Athens, alone, held the line, not with a mighty empire, not with gold or orichalcum walls, but with something Plato considered far more powerful: virtue. The Atlanteans were defeated, their armies were driven back, and the gods, watching from above, were displeased. Zeus called a council. The dialogue ends there. Plato never finished writing Critias. The final pages are missing. We do not know exactly what Zeus said. We only know what happened next. In a single night, in a single day and night, to be precise. Both cities were destroyed, Athens swallowed by earthquakes and floods, Atlantis swallowed by the sea. The earthquakes came first, then the water, an island larger than 2 continents, gone beneath the waves in a single night. Plato says the ocean there became unnavigable after that, full of mud and debris, impassable, as if the sea itself wanted to forget what it had swallowed. No trace, no survivor's account, no ruins rising from the water, just a story passed from Egyptian priests to a Greek statesman, to a philosopher who sat down around 360 BC and wrote it all from memory, and then asked us to believe it. For 2,500 years, we have not been able to stop wondering whether we should. Where was Atlantis? Scholars have placed it in more locations than almost any other mystery in history. The Atlantic Ocean itself, the most literal reading of Plato, a sunken landmass west of Gibraltar, now thousands of meters beneath the sea, the Mediterranean, specifically Santorini. Around 1600 BC, a massive volcanic eruption devastated Santorini, one of the largest in recorded history. The island's center collapsed into the sea, creating the vast caldera visible there today. Santorini, along with nearby islands, once formed a large circular island, echoing the concentric geography of Atlantis as Plato described it. And beneath its ash, the ruins of Akrotiri, a sophisticated ancient settlement with paved streets, elegant homes, and elaborate artwork, frozen in time by the very eruption that destroyed it. A city preserved by its own catastrophe. Then there is the Eye of the Sahara, the Richat structure, in the desert of Mauritania, in northwest Africa. there is a geological formation visible from space, a series of concentric rings, measuring almost exactly the dimensions Plato described, surrounded by what was once, at the end of the last ice age, a fertile and well-watered plain. Near the Atlas Mountains, near the Atlantic coast, near the people ancient geographers called the Atlantis, no excavation has been done. The structure sits in one of the most remote deserts on Earth, waiting. And then there is the simplest theory of all, that Plato made it up, that the Atlantis story was invented to support his political ideals, a philosophical lesson dressed as history, a perfect city deliberately destroyed, a warning about what happens when power outgrows wisdom, a story so beautifully constructed that 2,500 years later, we are still searching the ocean floor for it. Perhaps that was the point all along. Let the image settle over you now. A city at the center of the ancient world. Concentric rings of water and land. Temples sheathed in gleaming orichalcum. Hot springs and cold springs rising side by side from the earth. A colossal god driving 6 winged horses. Above an ocean that no longer exists. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was always a dream. Maybe the most honest answer is that we will never know. And there is something strangely peaceful about that. About the things that remain just beyond our reach. The mysteries that stay mysterious. Not every question needs an answer to be worth asking. Some stories are most beautiful precisely because they are unfinished. Like the dialogue Plato never completed. Like the city that vanished before anyone could map it. Like this night, slipping quietly into sleep. Good night.